Welcome to the UK.
Broken Britain. Everything is falling apart in the UK. At least that is what some people are saying on the internet. There are some YouTubers who have left the UK and they went to China to live for over 10 years, and now they make lots of videos to claim that everything is great in China, everything is new, and China is a rich country and the UK is now just a third world country. I don't believe that narrative. I think there are some positive things about the UK. There are some things that are negative. I took my daughter to the UK because I wanted her to learn something about the UK. We are on a round the world trip and the UK is one of our stops. So, let's go back to the beginning. So I have lived in the UK for 30 years and I moved away in 1997. And I spent most of that time after 1997 in Hong Kong, so I know China very well. I traveled to Thailand and Vietnam often, and so I know those countries very well too. And when we talk about these countries later on, and basically, I remember a time when we lived in the UK. The UK and the US were on a par. The UK was on a par with the US. The income levels were almost the same, and the quality of life was roughly the same. Fast forward to 2025, US wages are now 30% higher than that of the UK. So clearly, things have deteriorated in the UK ever since the great financial crisis and Brexit and the Ukraine war. I think a lot of Brits have lost hope in the politicians. I think a lot of people are frustrated with the Conservative Party, and they are also frustrated with the new Labour Party, and they just don't have any trust in politicians because there's higher unemployment, inflation is high, the quality of the infrastructure and the services in general are quite poor. So let's talk about some of the things I did in the UK with my daughter. So first of all, I took her to some indoor playgrounds in the UK. In the UK, indoor playgrounds are usually quite small. They don't have many toys and they are quite expensive. In Asia, I'm used to taking my daughter to indoor playrooms in Thailand and Vietnam, and they are all new and big and really cheap. But that's not to say that there's nothing positive about the UK, because in the UK there are lots of outdoor parks. It's something that you do not find in Asia. Also, I want to talk about the trains in the UK, because a lot of people have been going online and they see the high-tech, high-speed trains in China, and then they come to the conclusion that China is a rich country. China is the country that's going to overtake the US. Well, actually, China is quite a poor country. And this time I took some trains in the UK, and I think that they are quite new these days, at least the ones I took. And also the trains are faster than before, but they are not high-speed trains. But there is one problem with the trains in the UK, and that is not all carriages have air cons. And I went to the UK during the summer. So on some days I found it difficult to breathe. So this is something that the UK should try to solve. I mean, they're offering a service. Why not just install air cons in every single carriage? And I think that the UK is not child friendly. Well, actually, because I visited Birmingham, I went to the Bullring shopping centre, and I'm with a toddler and a stroller, and they didn't have any escalators on the outside of the shopping centres. And also, if you go to UK train stations, I mean, most UK train stations are over 100 years old, and they don't have lifts, and they don't have escalators. They may have lifts somewhere hidden, and you have to try to find them. But in general, they're not in front of you, you know what I mean? So it's not a really convenient country. And basically, if you're in China or Thailand or Vietnam, all the infrastructure is new. Everything has been built in the past 15 years. Yeah, so you get better infrastructure in Asia. So I can understand why some Brits are frustrated, because in Britain you pay a lot of taxes. So why is it that the government cannot fix such a simple problem, such as installing a lift or installing like escalators? But there is one good, there is something positive as well here, because in my last video I said that the US has poor infrastructure, and the UK actually has better infrastructure than the US, partly because the UK is a smaller country, so it's because the area is smaller, then the government can actually focus on some key areas. In general, the quality of the roads in the UK is better than the US. And also, I think public transport is a lot better in the UK. But then again, I'm comparing the UK with Los Angeles, and Los Angeles has really bad public transport. Also, in general, a lot of people are frustrated because things are really expensive in the UK, and this really is true. I think a lot of expats choose to leave the UK and they resettle in Asia because life is a lot easier in Asia. Things are cheaper. A lot cheaper. You get the same product at a cheaper price. And when you buy something in Asia, the service is a lot better. Also, I think a lot of people are frustrated because it's difficult to find a job as a graduate. However, I think if you've never been to China and you've just watched a video of high-speed rail trains in China, you will come to the conclusion that China is a rich country. And I can tell you right now that China is not a rich country. I mean, basically, the high-speed trains in China have been built, well, the money, the funding comes from the Chinese population. Would people in the UK like their income taxes to rise in order to pay for this kind of infrastructure? And also, the infrastructure in China, a lot of it is for show-off purposes. Another thing is that you can't actually buy your own house in China. You can buy a house, but you can't buy a house with the land and own it forever. So the UK is not really, really bad. There are some positive things about the UK. And finally, as a parent, I also want my daughter to learn English. And it's not cheap to learn English if you're living in Asia. It can cost somewhere between £50,000 and £70,000 to send one child to a boarding school in the UK. And in my area, not all children speak English. In fact, there aren't that many English speakers around. So we need the UK for education. So what I'm saying is, not everything is negative in the UK. Those people who say that they live in China and they claim that China is so great and how bad the UK is, well, actually, if they have children, in the end, they will need to send their children back to the UK. Okay, so that's all I want to say about this topic. In our next video, I will talk about over-tourism.